All right, now let's welcome in our guest for today. He is one of the members of the Brute crew out in Naples, Florida. He's about to make his second appearance as an individual at the CrossFit Games. It's three-time teen champ, Dallin Pepper. Dallin, how is it going? I know you're enjoying your rest day right now.
Yeah, it's going great. Rest days are the best days, right? But training's been solid, lots of fun. I mean, like you said, we got a great group down here. Keeps things fun, exciting, interesting. We got a whole bunch of characters, so it's good.
Are you and the crew all training together right now as you prep for the lead up to the games, or is it still a lot of individual training?
It's so we've kind of got like a balance going on where like we want to make sure we're hitting very sport specific stuff, but continuing with the training that we know that's like helping us improve weaknesses, that type of thing. So usually like Monday, Wednesday, Saturday is going to look more sport specific. We're all doing more similar workouts. Sometimes there will be adjustments made for each person. And then we get 2 or 3 days a week where we're just doing pretty normal training, the style that we do things. And there is still kind of like the split sessions because we still do have a small space, but on the sport specific days, we'll try and get, if we're outside or whatever, we'll try and get as many of us to go at once so we can do a little competing here and there.
And touching on the crew as a whole, you guys have a pretty eclectic bunch, some different personalities, some different skill sets. It seems like as a whole, though, and maybe this comes from the top down from Matt, there's a little bit of like swagger there. But how would you characterize like the Brute personality as a whole from all the athletes that are there?
Like Brute as a whole, or like each of us? Because I would say I've never met 5 more different people.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's yeah. There's the 5 of us athletes that are going to the games this year. Could not be more different, like personality wise. But when it comes to Brute, I think swagger is the right word. You should have a little swagger. Like we're confident in what we're doing, we're confident in the work, and we're confident what's going to show up on the floor. And I think a little bit of swagger and confidence in your preparation, that's all earned over time.
How do you manage all of those 5 personalities as a group then? If they're so different, like what makes you able to mesh at a point where you're successful?
Yeah, you got to tip your hat to Matt a little bit for keeping everything under control with all of us athletes. But I think in a way, because there is no one that's like too similar, there's you can kind of rely on people for different things. Like if you need a good laugh, you're going to go to James. So like I could go through each and every one of us. We all kind of like have our things, and we know who like we need to talk to in a situation, or maybe not talk to in a certain situation, which is totally fine. We all get that. But I think it adds a lot of value and keeps things fun.
And you spoke to that confidence. I think that over the course of the last year, at least, it seems like you are just exploding with this confidence. And I don't know if it's from working with the Brute crew. I don't know if it's been the transition from a teen athlete to an individual, but is there something that you can point to that has really helped that confidence in your mindset and even your personality?
Yeah, I would say more from like a personality and like personal standpoint. One of my biggest goals in the last year has been like truly just to show who I am and not hold back. I think this is my personal opinion, but like teens that grow up in the sport, like I feel like we tend to give the answers everyone wants to hear, right? Like we work so hard, like sleep, nutrition, recovery. It's like I'm really trying to show that I am just a person, and I'm trying to show people I am fun, I'm exciting, like I like to go do things, as well as work. Like there's an off switch for that for sure, but I think that's just allowed me to be more confident in myself and the athlete I am. And then when it comes to the athletic side and confidence, I just know the work I'm putting in, so that confidence just starts to come naturally.
Was there a point where you realized you needed to make that switch? Like, I got to show more personality, and maybe this like delivering of baked answers that everyone wants to hear just isn't suiting me.
I mean, in the sport, the way our sport is set up, if you want to make a living, most of the money is going to come from sponsors, unless like you're at the very top, of course. And still at that point, like sponsors are huge. And that's, you have to separate yourself. You have to be an interesting figure, and you have to figure out who you align with when it comes to brands, and brands have to be able to see if they align with you. And if you're not putting your authentic self out there, you'll never know what deals might come, that type of thing. And so just something I've been working on with my team. And like, I think the people around me that are close to me, they know the real Dallin, and just as much as I want to show it, they want me to show it. And I think that's been a huge help.
Is it hard to figure that out and how to stay true to yourself and be authentic when we're in a sport that sponsorships are so important, and sometimes the income relies on you to partner with brands, and sometimes they don't always align with exactly who you are? So is it like difficult to manage those waters to figure out like what aligns with you to let you be the true Dallin Pepper?
Yeah, luckily, like I've been working with Cooper Marsh with lab management since, I mean, he messaged me the week after my last year as a team in 2019, and I've been with him ever since. And I don't know what I would do without Coop. Like, I mean, there was even a point where I didn't know if I was going to continue to compete, because there's this weird like transition stage, especially for the men, where it's taking longer. And it's like, I gotta go to school, I gotta start figuring out how to make money, moving out, that type of thing. And so, but I think Cooper's just helped me navigate that so well, and he knows me so well as a person that when opportunities arise, like sometimes brands might reach out and I might not ever hear about it because Cooper knows that it's not going to align with what I want or what I want to do. And then we'll also, if we think there's potential, we'll have discussions about it to see if it's a fit. And I think I would say a majority of the athletes are really trying to find brands and opportunities and sponsorships that do align with what they want and something they truly believe in.
How did you manage that? Because in the end, you're trying to identify with brands as your true self at a time when knowing your true self at 21, 20, 22 is like really, really, really tough for a lot of people. And then at the same time, there's a bit of maybe an identity crisis, because here you are coming off 3 years where you dominated the team competition, and suddenly you're like, I don't know if I'm an athlete anymore because I'm not at the highest stage. Like, what were the things that helped you navigate that? And do you think that in the end, having those years off, not being at the games, was maybe beneficial?
Yeah, I guess I don't know exactly how to answer your question. Um, I think in the beginning, working with Cooper, like we did kind of ride off the teenage wave. That's where we started things, and that's how we got the ball rolling. And it just allowed me to continue to train and put everything into this until I continue to figure out who I am as a person and athlete. And I have, and no means got it figured out at this point. I still see like years and years of trying to figure out what I'm doing. But yeah, it's been fun. And I think it just kind of like slowly progressed from team to individual, and you take what you can where it's given.
And speaking to individual, going back to semifinals, you were able to stand on the podium, finish third overall at North American East semifinals, one of the most competitive semifinals nonetheless. Was that the goal going into the semifinal, or was it just to kind of see where you were and stacked up against the other competitors?
Yeah, I kind of had an idea like what the top 5 might look like, and we were right. But I knew we could finish in any order. I knew I was capable of getting on the podium. I could end up 5th, 1st, whatever that might be. So I knew like where I wanted to be with the guys that were there. But really, it was just my number one goal was to have as nearly perfect executed a weekend as possible, and I would give a kind of a glimpse into where I was at with my fitness.
We hear that all the time, go out there and execute. And I'm curious, looking back at semifinals, because you do have, the worldwide, event win, a test win in that finale. But what other elements of execution stand out to you, good or bad, going back to the semifinals?
Bad. I did like 7 muscle ups in the last round of that ruck workout. I just like forgot to do the dip, and I dropped, and I was like, okay, I got to do another muscle up, start another complex. And before I started, I was like, okay, don't do that again. And then I managed to do it again. Total brain fart. Like I was like 2 reps off the lead with like Adler and Noah, and that cost me a lot of time. But then like other execution is like some of those, maybe like Linda and the event 6 where I might have a different strategy than most people. But something we talk about a lot at Brute is executing a strategy that's your best strategy, not someone else's, because you need your best time, not trying to copy someone else and still try and get your best time, because that's not possible.
When you look at Brute Strength and the training crew, you've been there for a bit now, but more athletes have come down. The training camp has grown. So we've seen an evolution with the training camp, but what are some of the evolutions that you've seen, maybe both personally, but also as an athlete, and how has that transitioned into, your fight for getting better and better at the games?
Yeah, I think like personally for like me and my wife moving here across the country has been the biggest growth experience for us together, but also individually. Or like we both grew up in like smaller towns, so it was like really getting outside of our comfort zone and figuring out who we are and learning and getting new experiences. And then as an athlete, it's just putting me right into all the best resources I need, as well as training partners and the attention to detail when we're in the gym and outside the gym even is on a whole new level when everyone around you is focused on the same goals.
And then, zooming out a little bit more, how would you say the training environment or Brute as a camp has evolved over the last couple of years? Because it feels like you guys are really starting to maybe hit a stride to solidify a little bit more, even, maybe with some storms and some flooding mixed in that may have kind of upended things a bit.
Yeah, I think we've had people come and go a little bit over the last year and a half. And I think when we first got here, like when we all came, we didn't know really what to expect. I don't think Matt knew quite what to expect. We've never done this. But we're all ready to just like roll with the punches and get things done. And now we've solidified kind of our routine, how we approach things. And like I'll let kind of Matt speak more on that as you guys continue to watch like Brute in the space and everything that's going on. But I think you'll be able to see a lot more of that. But figuring out who we are as a company and a brand and athletes has been huge.
So maybe what's one thing that you can shine a light on about the Brute crew that you think maybe we don't see on the outside, something that makes Brute special, whether it's the personality or the behind the scenes stuff, you guys joking around, playing basketball, whatever it may be. Is there something that we don't see from the outside looking in that you think really adds something special?
Yeah, I think on like a serious note, I'd say like the summary would be like better is better. So that's kind of like what we try and strive for. We probably don't do as much volume if you were to look at our training. It's like we're trying to do the right things and not waste energy on things that don't need to be done. And then like on a fun note, we play a lot of games off season. We're playing pickleball probably 3 nights a week, and we try and stay competitive in and out of the gym. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun stuff. It's been a while since some of that stuff's been going on, just because we're so deep into the season. But I look forward to that once the games are over and once we get into the off season again.
Who's the best pickleball player? Because you guys are like in pickleball central in Naples.
Yeah, well, it's like the world championship courts are the ones we play at. There's like 64 courts. It's crazy. The best though, I'll give James singles.
Okay.
Just long, lanky. He can get across the court. I don't like playing singles because if I'm playing pickleball, I'm not trying to be that active. But we honestly, it's pretty consistent when we rotate through teams. But I gotta brag, me and Corinne are probably the best as a duo. So
Oh, got the husband and wife connection. That's it.
I know and she carries. I'll be honest, but it's fun.
That's good.
Yeah.
I spoke to Fee earlier today, and she said you guys also play can jam. Who's the best can jammer in the crew?
Oh yeah, at the beach. Honestly, I haven't played much with everybody. The one time I remember we were playing, it's actually Fee's fiance. He's pretty dang good. So.
Ooh.
Oh,
She did say he was
got a ringer.
competitive.
Yes, very competitive. We love Al. Al brings a good energy.
So kind of speaking to your personality, we recently saw you put that video on Instagram of the grips. There was a meme, you had personality, and you honestly were you were outspoken, and I was kind of surprised to see it on your Instagram. I was like, "Oh, Dallin Pepper, okay." Um,
Yeah.
where did that kind of come from is the first part of the question, and then the second part is, now that we have a little bit more clarity from Dave that it will be your grips on your hands, not on the bar, does that change your feelings about the new rule?
Yeah. So the first part of your question, we were all laughing, like making jokes, and I was like, "Someone video it. Like it's funny. I'm gonna put it on my story." And then the Office meme. Like everyone down here watches a ton of The Office, so it was like, "This is perfect. It's literally set up for it. The pictures are next to each other." And so like I thought it was funny, and if I find something funny, I'm gonna post it. And that's the type of stuff I'm trying to work on. When it comes to like the actual rule and stuff, the only issue I had was like the execution upon it. And I know Dave acknowledged that like that shouldn't have been sent out, that type of thing. I wasn't overly concerned. I assumed what they meant, and what they should have done is taken two pictures of grips and hands, like flat out, and one is shorter than your fingers, one is longer than your fingers. And I kind of picked up that that's what they meant, but it's always fun to poke a little fun around, right? Everyone enjoyed it. The community laughed. Like we got an answer out of CrossFit. It was great.
Well, and
I felt
even
like
with
it gave us
that, we got
content for days.
yeah, it
Exactly.
really did, and it showed us that behind the scenes look at what is going through the athlete's mind, but we did get a more clear answer from Dave after you put out that video, whether that was exactly what he was responding to or not. Uh, do you think that that shows how important it is for athletes to be more outspoken about their thoughts when it comes to whether it's rules, standards, anything in the sport?
Yeah, I think if you have questions, maybe an email's not being answered. I didn't email them, but uh, you could post something, like get the community talking. If people are talking about it, questions might get answered. I know, like one thing I talked with Pat and Brent about, they're working on the PFAA, doing all that stuff and kind of taking the lead on that, which is awesome. Uh, I think before the document's sent out, maybe if it was sent to Brent or Pat, or just like any communication with athletes, that would have been an easily solved problem before it even became a problem. And I think that continues to show that communication between athletes and CrossFit to continue to professionalize the sport is super important.
What's been your involvement with the PFAA so far? Because, Pat and Brent are definitely kind of leading the charge a little bit, but it's also important, I think, to have buy-in and involvement from the younger side of the field to kind of steal something from, the political realm. A lot of times you have people making laws for a generation that they're not a part of, right? And then they're about to exit stage right, and they're dictating things. So I'm curious, where you, James, some of the younger athletes, what their involvement has been, and what are your thoughts around the athletes organizing so far?
Yeah, I think Brent did a great job early on. I think when it was first formed, he was reaching out to me, and so I've been on calls over the last 3 or 4 years, just listening, giving input where I can. Um, but honestly, like Pat and Brent have been leading it. Like they'll relay information to a lot of the athletes, ask for more input. We send it to them, and then they are the ones communicating. So it's a little more streamlined than having 80 athletes all going at CrossFit. But that's kind of been the gist of it.
Mm. You also recently talked about cuts, and you said very confidently, again, back to that confidence, that they
Yeah.
don't affect you, which I think was, you said it so directly. It was kind of inspiring to see that evolution of you. But if they don't affect you specifically, do you have any like takes on the cuts when it comes to the rest of the field? Do you feel like it still impacts you? What are kind of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind is like scoring tables and how different events are going to be weighted throughout the weekend, because there are going to be less athletes as long as certain events aren't more important than others, right? Um, as long as we can keep it pretty consistent. I do like I understand the cost of traveling to the CrossFit Games, and I will say that part sucks. If you are being cut early from one of the biggest weekends of your career, that makes I get that. That's not fun. But I also think it allows for more to be done at the CrossFit Games. Like as we get deeper into the weekend, you can do things that you can do with 10 or 20 athletes or 30 athletes, whatever the number might be, that you couldn't do with 40. And so I guess we'll see what that might be this year. But those are kind of my thoughts around it.
For sure. And you are entering your, I guess, second year as an individual. You've been plenty of times as a teen. But I'm curious if what the kind of delta is in growth from year one to year two after finally breaking through. And if there's anything necessarily that beyond the obvious that you're carrying from year one that you feel like you have a leg up coming into the second year.
Yeah, I think it was having been to Madison 3 times. Like, I think my advantage from the teenage division was I knew the venue, I knew how things worked, that type of thing. So nothing took me by surprise there. But you still don't. Nothing replaces experience when it comes to competing as an individual, and you can't fake experience. You can't do any of that. And I learned a lot last year. Whether it's the days are even longer as individuals than as teenagers. The field is much deeper. There's 40 of us, and all 40 of us are very legit competitors out there. And so you got to fight for every point you can in every single event and make sure you're recovering. And I'll just continue to try and dial that in. Not that I wasn't last year, but there's definitely adjustments to be made.
And I'm curious, what were the like, you mentioned like the field's deeper, and I was like hearing what is like the oh crap moment, right? You know, and I liken it to the step up from like JV to varsity on like football. Like the first time you hit someone and they don't move, you're like, oh dang, I'm playing with the big boys now. Did you have a moment like that last year? If so, what was it? And are you looking for some redemption?
Yeah, I'd say most of those moments honestly came through like my first semis, Wadapalooza, that type of thing. And I was kind of ready for that type of feeling. But it's just something as simple as you take 5 extra seconds for chalk, 10 other dudes are not. It's not just like 1 or 2, but like, and of course there's going to be people that are pulling way ahead and some people that fall behind. But when you get in that big group of people, every second someone's going to be finishing depending on the event. And so, I mean, it goes back to like 2007, right? Every second counts type stuff. That's 100% true. And it's easy to forget in the heat of the moment.
So knowing that you finished 19th last year, and it's hard to, I think, find a specific number of a placement where you want to be because you can't really control what the other athletes are doing. But do you have a goal in mind to move up X amount of spots, or, you know, a site that you're searching for?
Yeah, I think last year's goal was top 10. And so we're just going to carry that over to this year. But I know if things go right, I could be anywhere inside that top 10. So
what things have to go right? There's a ton of variables for every athlete, you know, whether it's their strengths, their weaknesses, maybe how the programming lays out. But is there anything you're like, you know, these 1 or 2 things could definitely make a huge impact?
Yeah. Well, that's funny you bring up programming. I never want to be the athlete that relies on programming. I know some people are like, well, if the programming's right, I'll do this. And it's like, no, let's not do that. But when you look at data, like programming does matter. So that's my thought there. But it really comes down to me being able to execute and what Matt always tells us, like creating a strategy to get my best performance and my best time to allow me to get as many points as possible on every single event. And so we'll just take it one rep, one workout at a time.
So even though you're not necessarily focusing on what's going to be programmed, what would you, if you could decide, what would your one event be?
One event. Probably like the repeat of the semifinal final. That'd be nice, right?
Give me another group picture. I already know I got that one. Oh, that's great. One thing that's always stood out to me, Dallin, and it's been echoed by, you know, James and other people that you train with, is that you tend to be kind of the steady hand. Like a lot of people look to you as like the steady person, the that doesn't get flustered or has seems to be good at everything and is always, constant. But I know that's not always the case. In any competition, you're going to have your ups and downs. So for someone that comes off as so steady, what are the things that you do to make sure that you don't get those too high highs, too low lows, and kind of get yourself squared for competition?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was gonna say. Like, don't let the highs get too high, lows get too low. Um, Understanding that this isn't everything as much as it is everything. Like in the moment, it's everything, but like we work so hard for these moments, and we give so much of our lives to the sport and this career. But at the end of the day, I can come home to my wife and my dog and my family back home, and there's so many more important things out there. And so whether it's at night after an event, like just like debriefing with my team and my friends and Corinne, and just trying to relax for a minute and then dial back in, and it just allows me to calm down and stay focused.
What is the way that you can kind of decompress and calm down and stay focused? Do you meditate? Do you play a card game with your wife? Like, is there a little trick of the trade that you have?
Yeah, like before competitions, I feel like it's lots of games, and then during competitions, it's like Marvel movies, that type of stuff. Anything
Oh,
that's like
you're with
Marvel's
Tommy
like
here.
far from CrossFit, and so it's like it's great. It's great.
All right, you get done. You get done with the games. You have an awesome weekend. What's the one Marvel movie you're going to put on that's like, yeah, let's go?
Oh man, Thor Ragnarok's one of my top favorites. It's hilarious. Uh, and then Spider-Man: No Way Home was incredible. Or sorry,
Yeah,
that was the one, not the new cartoon one. The one that was,
yeah.
yeah, that's no,
The yeah, with all
yeah,
three of them. Yep.
yeah,
My man, I
incredible.
love it. I
Like,
love it. I
You
agree.
guys are speaking your own language right now.
Lauren's eyes just glazed over. She's like, "Oh
I'm just
God,
like,
not
no,
this
no, no.
again."
it'll
Oh yeah,
only
but
take
I was
a
like, I
couple
feel like I'm
months
back with
to watch
Sean and
all of them.
Tommy.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. A
Does
couple
your
months
wife
she'll
get
get
into
all
it?
of them. Yeah. What was that, Lauren?
D Dallin, does your wife get into them as well?
I hadn't seen Marvel before I started dating her, so we watched all of them
Oh.
when we were dating in high school.
Your
So
turn, Lauren.
I owe it to her. She's a bigger Marvel nerd than I am, like by far. So,
All right, I'm
Um,
convinced I need to start a marathon.
yep.
You've mentioned your wife a few times. Obviously, a massive part of your life, but I think it certainly pops into people's head. Like you got married young, and why was that the right decision for you? What kind of led you down that path, and how has it enriched your life as a whole? Being that you're a couple years into it, you're in your early 20s, and really you're starting to build this pretty awesome career.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of an old soul, and you guys kind of could see that just through, even though you guys aren't involved too much in my life, but that's just how I am. I'd say I'm a little more mature, and I think Corinne is also. And
Mm.
I mean, just how we were raised, family, just kind of led to those decisions. And honestly, I wouldn't change. I would never change it for the world, because you got a teammate for life, and you get to run through all these challenges. And although sometimes it's tricky, challenging, different, hard, whatever you want to call it, at least you have someone to fall back on, and they can help you through anything.
No doubt.
And when you're at the games, having that support system, I mean, any point of competition in CrossFit or any sport, it's so important to have that. Does she serve as maybe like a listener for you to debrief about the events, or is it the events are over, you go back to your room with your wife and you talk about something completely different?
Yeah, I'd say it's more on like the completely different, or I just like don't talk. We just sit and watch a movie, that kind of thing. Like, she can just be there, and she understands that. Like in competition, I do get very focused. I get pretty quiet to myself, but she does such an incredible job of like understanding what my needs are, even if I'm not talking about it. And then when it comes to getting ready for each competition day, like she at this point she kind of knows what I need based on what events are coming, whether it's food, equipment, that type of stuff. So we've got a pretty good system, and she's working just as hard as me out there.
Man,
I
well,
love it.
I only have one more question, and it had to happen knowing that you're a Marvel fan. So taking all the Brute Games qualifiers and Matt as a whole, yourself included, if you had to assign them an Avenger or a villain, who would they be?
Oh, this is gonna be tough. We'll give James, maybe Drax.
Yes, that was exactly who I had in my head. Oh, that's perfect.
Oh man. Fee could be. I mean, if we want to go like Guardians route, Fee could be kind of like Groot, just like super happy. There's probably someone else that she could be.
Ooh.
Oh man, I need some ideas. What do you see?
Okay. So, all right. If I'm thinking, I think Danielle's Black Widow. I think she's got a little edge to her. You know, they always allude to like these like crazy things that she did in her past that like give her that like edge. You know, I think that's fitting.
That was deep. That was good.
Yeah. Man, I feel like you have to be Captain America because
I mean, yeah. There was no other option.
He's the steady hand. He's the kind of de facto leader. He's, for better or for worse, he's like the true moral compass of the Avengers too. So, oof. I'm trying to think who Emma is.
I know. Matt could definitely be Tony.
Yeah, 100%. He's got a little bit of that swag. I actually think Emma, you know, obviously switching genders technically, but he's a robot. I think she could be Vision.
I was thinking that, but I didn't know how I felt about it, but that's what I was thinking.
Because she is very like pensive and thought and very direct and to the point, but like when you unleash Vision, just goes. Yep, absolutely. I like it.
I think that's the next Brute Strength shirt that you guys need is like the one that you're wearing right now, Dallin. If you want to stand up quick just to show people and have each of your like Avengers over the face or something.
That'd be
my gosh. That's awesome.
Tommy would get one. Send one out.
I better. Hey, I'm an XL, man. Just putting it out there. Yep. I'm all for it. But Dallin, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you joining us on your rest day. Looking forward to seeing what year 2 has for you in store, and we're pulling for you, man. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys.